We're now going to build some custom models based off our database. Remember, we have a static page, a built-in model here, contact, and a built-in model here, login. Where would I see those? Well, we'll see those here if you go under protected models. You see the contact and the login. Now, they also have a view. You obviously were able to see them, and those fall under the site. So we've got the contact, the login, the main, and error. So those are the views that are defined for the site, nothing else. And we do have the one page, the about, the static page. Now, looking back at our main configuration file, first of all, because I'm going to mention it in a few minutes, I want you to look at this. We load the models, we load the components. Okay, components here we didn't talk about, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. We enabled the Yii tool, and now we're going to use the Yii tool. Now, in order to use the Yii tool, which is going to build some more models for us, we've got to, it's going to build it off our database. We got to tell it where the database is. The default here is SQLite. So we're going to use MySQL, delete all of that, delete the ending comment, and change the name of the database. Now the database is My Password Manager. And what that will allow us to do is to use the Yii tool. Now remember, because of URL Manager, I could just specify Yii right here. It brings up, I got these 5 things that I can do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build some models. Now it wants to know based on what tables. Well, I'm just going to say, hey, you've got access to the database. Show me all the tables. I do that and it says I found these 4 tables: emails, passwords, roles, and users. Now I don't have to build models for these, but I'm going to. And it's as easy as that. I've generated the models. Let's go back and look and see if they were created. Yep, I got emails, passwords, roles, and users. All new files that were added here. Well, I've created the models, which is just allows me, let's look at again this quickly here. It's just an extension of CActiveRecord, which is a way to actually says the table that it rules, and there's some rules here that will go back and change. But it's just an access, a way to access the database. And we want to do more than access the database. Now I'm going to use the CRUD generator. That's create, read, update, and delete, and it should have an S here for search, the records that are in the database. The CRUD generator will actually create both a controller and a view. Let's look back before I do that. Let's look at what we've got in terms of controllers. First of all, we see that we've got a site controller. That's the only controller. And we've got these views, which is really just the site view. There is also this layout here that can be used, but really we just got a site view. So now when unfortunately it won't let me use the default to say, hey, create them all, but I remember it's emails, right? I preview it and it says I'm going to create a controller, emails controller, and I'm also going to create a view for emails. I'll form view, a search view, a view, admin, create, index, update, and view. Those are all of the CRUD relationships, and I'll show you those. Here we go. Generate them. Go back to our files. We see now we have the controller. It's just an extension of the base controller here with those functions, which I could modify. And views, it created this folder here, emails. Those are the new views. And it has all of those that we mentioned before, all those different views. Well, how do I get to that? I don't have, if I go to my home here, I don't have a link to it. But before I show you that, I'm going to go ahead and create the other controllers and views. I've got 3 more: passwords, roles, and users. So passwords, same type of generations. I could say don't generate them all. Roles, and users. Okay, now I've created all of those. Now let's go back to the main menu. I don't have any links to those here on my main menu. Those weren't created. But I can look at them by looking here and saying, show me the emails. And it will give me this view here. Has the breadcrumbs, shows me all of the emails that are in the database, and it gives me the operations for creating or managing emails. I'm going to go ahead and create an email here, but before I do that, I might mention that there is an authentication built in to this. Well, where do we find that? Remember I mentioned components? Well, we have these components here. We have the controller component and the user identity component. Now, we loaded these components when we started the app. And if I look at this user identity component, it's a way to authenticate, and it has the default passwords users would be demo username and demo password, and admin. So if you wanted to change those, we'll spend more time in the user identity component later. But that's where those are, and you can change them there or just use them as they are. So I'll go ahead and log on and say remember me. Now it says I can create an email. Let's say I wanted kurtclement@yahoo.com. Now my date created here, I'm going to say it's 9/12/13. Also the same as last updated. And connect it to user 2. There we go. So now it's showing me this email, and I can list all the emails. So now we can see we have both of these emails here. We can also create, which goes to this view here, emails create. That's the view under emails. We can list the emails, which is just the index view, index. And we can manage, which is just the admin view. Okay. And all of these work for all of the users. Again, allowing me to create, read, update, and delete. So I can go to users and look at the same thing. I can create users, manage users, and do all of that. Again, this is all built with the Yii tool and gives us our basic for a working application. Now, I didn't show this in the last video, but I want to include it here. At this point, since I feel confident that I've reached a milestone here, I'm going to go to my Yii tool. We can see that some assets were added. These assets are jQuery and boxes and things like that. But for the most part, we see all of these files that were added. I can stage them all. And then I'm going to commit them. And I'm going to say, this is the part where Yii created models. And commit. A quick view at my repository says I've got my initial commit, made changes to main.php in order to activate URL manager, and then I've got my Yii created models. Okay, and that's it for this video.